Hello, I'm Elise. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing so good today. We are going to be doing my October wrap-up, and my October wrap-up is going to be a doozy, so buckle up. I'm telling you that in advance. It's going to be long, even if I talk about these quickly, because I read a lot of books. So in October, I read 13 books, which is the most books I've read in a month this year. I've had multiple months where I've read 12, but 13 is the highest that I've read so far. We're gonna get into that. It was a very good reading month overall, and I'm excited to talk about all of these books with you. So let's go ahead and get into it, get into these spooky reads. So as always, we're gonna go in the order that I read the books, and we'll see how I liked them. The first book that I read this month was a popular one at the moment, and that is These Fleeting Shadows by Kate Alice Marshall. And this is a YA novel, and it is about a girl who inherits this house from her grandfather that she's really never met, and like it's a Manor Hawthorne house, Harrow, that's the name of it. And she inherits Harrow, and you know that there's some spooky, mystical, fantastical things happening, but you don't truly know what's really going on. I picked this up because, like I said in my TBR for this book, I am trash for an inheritance trope. It might be my favorite trope of all time. I just love that. And I can't fully explain why, but I love it. And so I wanted to pick this up, even though it's YA, and YA tends to be more miss than hit for me, but wanted to pick it up anyway because it sounded really good. So this was so for me. And I will preface this by saying so many people have loved this, so maybe look to other reviews, right? If you do like reading more YA, lots of people love this. So this is an unpopular opinion, but I just felt like this was so. I think that where it really is lacking is like the YA of it all for me, which tends to be my issue with a lot of YA, where it just feels too convenient in places, that it just doesn't track and like makes me not believe the story. I can get down with fantastical things, that's not a problem, but I do need there to be some consistency. It's like, why would you have the power to do this in one scenario but then not be able to do it in another? Like, how could you have like this much power and then like be so helpless? I don't know. It like some of it doesn't track, and like it was taking me out of the story. I do think that the payoff, the end, is good. There's also a sapphic love story in this, which was really great to read about, and I think well done. And yeah, I think this has a lot to say about like memory, and what it means to love someone. Yeah, so good things in here for sure, but I think just like there wasn't the same consistency that I would have wanted, and some things weren't really believable for me, so that let the story down in some regards. I will also say this is pretty slow paced. Like this isn't, for me, it wasn't like a page turner, so just know that going in. Like I was fine with it being a little more slow paced, but it definitely is. So that is These Fleeting Shadows, and this one is published by Viking. All right, so that is the first book down, and I have my laptop down here so I can remember the order that I read them in. So if I look down, that's what I'm looking at. Second one was a graphic novel, and that is Delicates, and this is by Brenna Thummler, and this is published by Oni Press. And this is the second kind of like, I mean, it is a sequel to the first one, which is called Sheets. And the art in here is beautiful. I basically read this for the art. So even the first installment, I gave it 3 stars. Like the story in itself is just so for me, but the art is like some of the best art that I've ever seen in a graphic novel, and I just can't get over it. And that will keep me buying this series as long as they come out, because I love the art that much. So yeah, this one has to do with bullying. So it follows the same character from last time, but there's a new student in town. They're in middle school, I think. And the new student is getting bullied because she believes in ghosts and is trying to capture a ghost in photography on camera. So Yeah, lots of heartfelt stuff in this. I want to say like maybe this is considered middle grade. Yeah, I think if you're interested in kind of the spooky, heartfelt, like here's how to be a good person type of middle grade that has amazing art, this would be a good one to pick up. And I would recommend that you pick up Sheets first. So that was this one. Next book, we're getting into what was my obsession at one point during this month. And I truly mean obsession, because I was hooked on these books. And that is the next 3 books in the Veronica Speedwell series. So we have the next 3 here. A Treacherous Curse, which is the 3rd, A Dangerous Collaboration, which is the 4th, and then a Murderous Relation, which is the 5th. So I read all 3 of these this month, and like just loved them, just ate them up. Like I think I read each one in almost a day. So just like ravenously reading, which hasn't happened in a super long time. And I very much appreciate this series for that. So this, like I've said before, is a murder mystery series that follows like buddy type of dynamic between Veronica Speedwell, who is very much like ahead of her time, very intelligent, sex positive, very rambunctious, and then Stoker, who is also very intelligent, has a sordid past maybe, and is kind of grumpy and gruff. And this takes place in the 1880s in London, so Victorian London. It's just so great. It's exactly what you think it's gonna be when you hear that premise, but it's done really well. So it's like the really well done version of that, which I absolutely love. And yeah, I've just loved every second of reading all of these. My favorite one so far in the whole series is number 4, A Dangerous Collaboration. If you know, you know why it's my favorite. I think it's a lot of people's favorites. This just fucking did it for me, man. This did it for me. I loved it. So good. It was a 5-star. So yeah, I can't wait to continue on this series the rest of the year. I only have 2 more of the current ones to catch up on, and then the 8th one will be coming out at the beginning of next year. So excited for that and highly recommend that series. If you're a fan of like Sherlock Holmes, I think that you'll be a fan of this as well. All right, next one I read is a 5-star prediction, and that's In the Dream House by Carmen Machado. And this is published by Grey Wolf Press. This was one of my 5-star predictions, like I said, and I indeed gave it 5 stars. So pat on the back to me, another 5-star prediction that ended up being 5 stars. This was so good. I mean, like, I don't need to tell you it's so good. A million people have said it's so good, and it lives up to the hype. Everyone likes it for a reason. This is a memoir about a woman who is in an abusive relationship with her female partner. And what her experience is like going through that. It flashes back and forth throughout the relationship, so it's kind of a scattered timeline, and the form is really interesting and unique for this as well. So it's told in like almost like vignette style, where it has different framings or lenses to view that memory through. So for example, that one is like Dream House as diagnosis. Another one will say Dream House as Bluebeard, the myth, or Dream House as a daydream. So it's like a really interesting framework to conceptualize the memory that she's trying to process in that passage. And I just adored it. I loved it even more than I thought I was going to love it. I think it's such like an accurate, nuanced, vivid depiction of what it's like being in a psychologically abusive relationship. And yeah, I think like she puts in the good with the bad. It's not like, you know, here's me recognizing how bad it was. It's like, here's just the relationship laid out on paper as it was, and then the meaning that I'm making from that. So I loved it so much. Loved it, highly recommend. All right, next book that I read was another middle grade, which like I hardly ever read middle grade YA, and I read 3 this month. So the next one was Dark Waters, and this is by Katherine Arden. And this is the 3rd in a series. It's like a middle grade horror series by Katherine Arden, and this is published by Putnam. The first 2 being Small Spaces and Dead Voices. So this is the 3rd one. It was a good installation. I think this might be my favorite of the 3 that I've read so far. It does end on a cliffhanger though, where the other ones didn't. The other ones are very much fully resolved, and this one ends on a cliffhanger. So I want to get to the last one soon, just so I can wrap up the series. I think this does a good job for what it is. Like if you have someone who's like middle grade age and is interested in horror, I think this does a really good job. At this point in my life, it's like, you know, it's not written for me, so it's not everything I would hope it to be, but it's captivating enough, and I think that, yeah, it's interesting to read horror from like other age perspectives. So yeah, I did like this. I think it's the best one in the series so far, and I will be getting to the 4th and last one fairly soon. So that is Dark Waters. Next one, we have a spooky short story collection, and that is The Haunting Season, and this is by 8 various authors, and each one, the kind of tagline is ghostly tales for long winter nights. I would say the vast majority of these are about ghosts, but some of them are like about paranormal elements, not specifically ghosts, but it is very much like spooky, ghosty, but not like straight like true horror. Like the title suggests, it's very like wintry, spooky vibes without it just being totally horrific. So if that seems like your jam, I think you would like this. Obviously, some stories I like better than others. My favorite story was, what was the one? My favorite story was The Eel Singers, which is by Natasha Pulley. I absolutely loved that story. So yeah, highly recommend that. And that one was about this man who has the ability to like tell infinite future outcomes that can maybe happen. So kind of telling the future, but he's not sure which outcome is actually going to happen. So he sees horrific things all the time. And there's this one place where that doesn't happen. Like his brain loses the ability to do that, and he really needs a break. So he takes his partner, who's a man, and then a kind of like adoptive daughter that they have. So it's like a very found family vibes, and they go to this town to have a vacation. And the town clearly from the get-go has something off about it. It's like menacing people who are like very straight-faced, but like weirdly smiley. So yeah, there's something going on and they don't know what, and you figure out what it is as you go through the story. So very interesting. I would say the collection overall is probably like a 3-star collection. Some stories just really weren't for me. But yeah, some like that one was really great. So highly recommend picking this up if you're interested in just some like, I don't know, this would be great for reading them aloud. As like scary stories, so it would be great for that. And this is published by Sphere. Okay, next book that we read, we're getting into the 3 books that I read for Blackaweenathon. So I'll link that blog down below if you're interested in hearing more detailed thoughts about these 3 books. But yeah, I did read all 3 of these horror or horror adjacent novels for that video. The first one being Lakewood, and this is by Megan Giddings, and this is published by Amistad. This was really good. I very much enjoyed this. This story, maybe of any of them, has kind of stayed under my skin. It's like in my brain, it's wormed its way into my brain, and I've thought about it numerous times since. So this is about a woman whose grandmother has recently passed away, and her grandmother was pretty much like a mother figure to her. Her mother is ill and cannot fully take care of her. So her grandmother is taking care of her most of her life, and at the beginning, the grandmother has passed away. So this puts an extreme financial strain upon the family, and she needs to find a way to get money. So she starts looking for jobs, isn't really having any luck, and then she gets a letter from a medical research company saying that like she could apply to be a part of this testing group for a new medical study, and the pay is really, really good. We kind of go down that journey with her. She gets into this medical testing program that is in the town of Lakewood, and we go on from there. This is horror, so there's like body horror happening, but I would say mostly this is a social horror that's talking about the kind of racism and like lack of consent of medical testing in the Black community specifically. And it's that the intersection that has with poverty, which is like disproportionately affecting people of color and Black people included in that. I think the way that this book talked about generational trauma was like chef's kiss, so good. It was such an interesting way to think about generational trauma and like how that's perpetuated systemically and how like insidious it can really be. So yeah, I thought it was great. I highly recommend this. And Megan Giddings just came out with her second novel. This was her debut novel very recently. So interested to pick that up as well. But yeah, Lakewood. The next one for that blog was a very popular one, and that's Ring Shout, and this is by Djeli Clark, and this is published by Tor, or Tor.com, I should say. And this one was about this group of female fighters who hunt down Ku Kluxes, and Ku Kluxes are demons that inhabit the bodies of people who are filled with bigotry and hate, aka like KKK members, and they are tasked with hunting them down. So this was extremely cinematic, very plot heavy. There's a ton of action going on. It's a short novella, so like it is just like jam-packed throughout the whole thing. I did really enjoy this. I think this also had a lot of good commentary on race and how hatred could manifest in someone. It wasn't perfect for me. I think that some of the scenes weren't as cohesive as I would have liked them to be. Like it felt a little disjointed from scene to scene, and I wasn't totally sure how we got there. Overall, I enjoyed it. Would highly recommend it still, and lots of people love this, so I can see why. All right, the last book that I read for the Black Queen-a-thon vlog is The Deep by River Solomon, but also written with David Diggs, William Hudson, and Jonathan Snipes. And this is published by Simon & Schuster. This I really enjoyed as well. This follows a mermaid people called the Wajinru, and then it follows someone called, what's her name? Yetu, specifically, who's the main character, and they are the historian for the Wajinru people. And basically, as the historian, they are tasked with holding all of the traumatic memories of all of their ancestors, plus all the current people living in their community. Oh, there's my dog. He's come to be in the video. What's up, Bubba? You want to read this? Okay. He's just gonna chill behind me. So yeah, they hold all of the memories for their people, and basically it's killing them. Having to do this. So every year they have a process called the Remembering, in which they return all of the memories to their people for a certain amount of time so they can remember where they come from, and then they take them back. But Yetu feels like they cannot take them back or they will die. So they leave the memories with all of their people and they flee. So then it's about the process of the journey that they go on when they flee, the things that they realize about themselves. This has a lot to do with identity, has a lot to do with collective consciousness, and trauma, and how trauma can manifest in the body and be crippling, and also the story of a people and the importance of being able to remember the story of any type of culture, but specifically your own, and having the knowledge of that. So this did a really good job of exploring all the themes that it was exploring, and I highly enjoyed it, and add to the voices that are recommending you read this book. All right, 2 more. Next one that I read was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead, and this is by Olga Tokarczuk, and this is published by Riverhead, and this is translated from the Polish by Antonia Lloyd-Jones. So this, I have to say, you can tell by my deep sigh that this didn't totally work for me. I was so highly anticipating this, and it just overall didn't come together for me. I don't think it was a for me book. Like, I think the book is a quality book, it just wasn't for me. So this is, it's poised as like a literary murder mystery, and like kind of, but this is about a woman. What is her name? Janina. One of her neighbors dies, and basically she finds that death suspicious. There's like suspicion surrounding the death, and she starts meeting up with other neighbors in her community, trying to figure out what's happening. And then other murders start taking place that are also very suspicious looking murders very much involving like nature in some way, or animal. They're kind of looking into this and you're trying to piece together with them what's going on. That's the premise, but it's very slow paced. So like very, very slow paced. The sections with the actual murders are very short, and then the rest is all kind of like Janina's internal monologue and conversations with these other people that she's investigating with. This has a lot to do with like anger and righteous anger, and what is that, and who has a right to it maybe. This has a lot to do with the planet and nature and the way that we treat animals, and our world in general, and how we see ourselves as humans as separate from that, and the harms that can come with that. This has, I think part of why this didn't totally work for me is a little bit of a disadvantage of being read in the same year as Elena Knows for me, by Claudia Pinheiro, because the voice of the narrator is very similar. So they both have older female characters that are pretty direct, blunt, aggressive even, not very empathetic to the people around them, and that are also very convinced that they know the truth above all else, like above all other people, that they themselves know these things. And I just feel like Elena Knows did it way better. And that is, for me, it did it way better. I'm sure for other people, this is a better interpretation of that. But I think it suffered a little bit from the comparison for me of having read them both in the same year. This also has a lot to do with astrology, which I don't know much about. And I do think if I had more knowledge, I maybe would have gotten a little bit more out of it, but not a ton more out of it. So yeah, there's also a lot about astrology and kind of the meaning we can make from that in our lives. So yeah, there's lots of things going on in this book, but it just didn't come together for me. The ending is good, and saved the book for me a little bit, because for a while I was like, should I have DNF'd this? And then I got to the ending and it made it worth it. So I'll say that about it. So that was Drive Your Plow Over the Bones of the Dead. And the last book that I read this month was The Sister Who Ate Her Brothers, and this is by Jen Campbell, and this is illustrated by Adam D'Souza. And I read this on Halloween, so I saved it for Halloween. And this is like gruesome fairy tales from around the world that Jen has like maybe put her own spin on in some type of way. There's also lovely illustrations, not only the color illustrations like that, but the illustrations like on the side and of the book are lovely as well. I very much enjoyed this. I thought that there's 14 stories. I really enjoyed all of them. I like that it tells you the country that the original story comes from. And yeah, I mean, they really are gruesome. Like, they're gruesome. It's for, I think, middle grade, but you know, anyone could read this, and like, it doesn't shy away from, you know, blood, gore, death, trauma, all that type of stuff. It's in here, and I appreciated that as well. So yeah, this was a great way to end off the, you know, spooky month of October for myself. I very much enjoyed a lot of things that I read this month, so I loved it. I can't wait to see what next month brings. Please let me know your favorite thing that you read in the month of October, or even your least favorite thing maybe, if you want to throw that in there. Who knows? So I will see you all in the next one. Bye.